Well, that's it for today. I'm your boy Nakasuchi. This is The Raging Atheist. I'm gonna go watch me some Rationality Rules. I'll see you soon. Cut. No. Nope. Nakasuchi won't be watching Rationality Rules. The hell? That should be read and say great. This liberal get-up Nakasuchi's wearing. Get that the hell out of here. Your boy Earl is back. Howdy. Welcome back to The Raging Christian. I'm your boy Earl. Today we're gonna watch something Nakasuchi really enjoys. I don't get to watch it while he's watching it. I'm way back down there in his subconscious, and well, all I know is he's just really excited about this guy named Rationality Rules. I mean, what kind of name is Rationality Rules? You know, my daddy was a good old boy and named his boy Earl. Because us good old boys, we have real names. What kind of a name is Rationality Rules?
It's often said by skeptics and scientists that you can't prove a negative, or that it's impossible to prove that God doesn't exist. Hell, I even used to say this, but it's simply not true. You can prove a negative, and you can prove that God doesn't exist, depending on the definition of God. This is You Can't Prove That God Doesn't Exist, debunked.
I mean, what is that? What is that? I mean, what is that? What in tarnation did I just watch? I mean, I can't even understand the guy. I mean, don't you know how to speak English?
So first and foremost, a humongous and sincere thank you is in order. When I released my last video, titled A Likely Goodbye for Now, I of course knew that some of you would support me, but I in no way expected so many. I just want to say thank you. You've changed my life, and now hopefully together we can change the lives of millions more. Honestly, I simply cannot express how grateful I am, but I can demonstrate it by working my butt off. Anyhow, to get to the topic at hand, it's widely believed that one can't prove a negative. That one can't, to name but a few examples, prove that Santa, unicorns, God, or Russell's celestial teapot doesn't exist. But this isn't necessarily true.
I'm just lost. I mean, I don't understand. What the hell is he talking about? I mean, I just don't get it. I just don't see what Nakasuchi sees in this. I mean, how can you even understand what the hell he's saying?
Take Russell's teapot for example. If Russell was to assert that between Earth and Mars there is a microscopic teapot orbiting the Sun, then, in this case, it might well be impossible, or as good as impossible, to prove the negative. But if Russell was to also assert that the teapot is both entirely made of china and entirely made of steel, then we can prove the negative because this concept violates the law of non-contradiction, which states that contradictory statements cannot both be true in the same sense and at the same time. Nothing can be made entirely of china and simultaneously entirely of steel. This isn't possible, and hence, by proving the negative, we can prove the non-existence of such a teapot.
I don't know, maybe I'm just confused and lost, but I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I mean, it's all Greek to me, I guess. I just don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Now, some will object to this by saying that we don't know with absolute certainty that nothing can violate the law of non-contradiction. But I would reply by saying that With the exception of our own existence, we know absolutely nothing with absolute certainty, and so to demand that we have absolute certainty when proving a negative, but not absolute certainty when proving a positive, is unjustifiably inconsistent. And so, this objection doesn't stand. Now, before I tie this to the various concepts of the Abrahamic God, I just want to point out two things. The first is that the reason why people say you can't prove a negative is actually to convey that the burden of proof is on those who make an assertion, and that those who dispute the assertion don't have a burden of disproof. And of course, this is true, and this is the very purpose of Russell's teapot. It illustrates the nature of the burden of proof. It doesn't illustrate that you can't prove a negative. And the second thing I want to point out is that many negatives are actually extremely easy to prove, both colloquially and scientifically. For example, if I was to say to you that you can't prove that this cup isn't full of tea, and you had access to the cup and a clear understanding of all definitions, then of course you can prove the negative. It's not full of tea. But it should be.
Oh, I get it. I get it now. I get it. Your problem is that you drink tea. Now everybody knows that God himself comes down and brews every batch of Bud Light. If you just had Bud Light in that cup there instead of tea, well then you know the awesome truth of God. Sweet God. Sweet God. I wish you could just feel his graceful touches on you, Mr. Atheist. I just wish. And maybe if you put Bud Light in that cup instead of tea, well then you'd cut their hair off and would look like a little girl. Checkmate, atheist.
What's more, and to really knock this out of the park, scientific papers prove negatives all of the time. For example, the assertion that cell phones cause cancer has been overwhelmingly proven false. Or in other words, the negative assertion that you can't prove that cell phones don't cause cancer has been proven. Now again, such proof isn't absolute, but neither is any proof, positive or negative. Anyhow, with this all said, let's move on to the non-existent entity that is the Abrahamic God. Over the thousands of years since its inception, there have been countless definitions asserted for this entity, some of which insisting that it's a white man who physically manifests above the clouds, and others that it's three entities rather than one, who all care deeply about who you sleep with and in what position. But the most popular definitions, at least today, are 1. A transcendent and eternal being who created absolutely everything, which is actually a definition of the deistic God, not the Abrahamic God. And 2. A transcendent and eternal being who created absolutely everything, who's omnipotent, meaning that it has unlimited power, omniscient, meaning that it has unlimited knowledge, omnipresent, meaning that it's everywhere at all times, and omnibenevolent, meaning that it's all-loving and infinitely good. Oh, and it's worth noting that many theists additionally define this being to be just, merciful, and responsible for imbuing mankind with free will.
Now, I don't have to listen to that whole clip, because the rest of it's just a bunch of patty poo. I don't have to listen to that. All you have to listen to is the very beginning of that clip, where he's talking about how cell phones don't cause cancer. That right there tells me that Mr. Fancy Pants here, Mr. Fancy Pants, he don't know jack shit about nothing. Because everybody knows cell phones cause cancer. You know, I might be old school, but at least I ain't gonna get cancer. You know, where I'm from, if you want to talk to your neighbor, you just step outside and holler until he comes outside and hollers back.
Now admittedly, the first definition can't be proven false, because, like the existence of an intangible, invisible and undetectable celestial teapot, one would need unavailable and perhaps even impossible resources and knowledge to do so. But the second definition can be proven false, and we can do so by demonstrating that one or more of its attributes are internally contradictory, that one or more of its attributes contradict a law of 4, or that two or more of its attributes contradict one another. And so, let's name but just a few of these contradictions, starting with omnipotence. As observed by the 12th century polymath Averroes, one can prove that the very concept of omnipotence is self-contradictory by asking the simple question, can an omnipotent being create a stone so heavy that it cannot lift it?
Of course, God can do anything. God can do anything. God can do anything. If he wants to create a stone he can't lift, he can do it. Checkmate, atheist.
If the answer is yes, then the being's power is limited because it cannot lift the stone. But if the answer is no, then the being's power is limited because it cannot create the stone. And hence, an omnipotent being cannot exist. Now it's worth noting that while this crushes the most popular definition of omnipotence, it doesn't crush all definitions. But that's a rabbit hole we'll dive down at a further date. Moving on, let's now look at just some of the attributes that contradict one another. First off, if a being is omnipotent, then it's necessarily already omniscient and omnipresent, because it must already know everything and be everywhere in order to have unlimited power. And so saying God is omnipotent, omniscient and omnipresent is like saying that the sea contains water, hydrogen and oxygen. Considering that hydrogen and oxygen are constituents of water, one might as well say the sea contains water.
Oh, my brain just hurts now. Do I have to do this anymore? I don't know if I can take any more. I'm trying, Lord. I'm trying to defend your good name. But he's right. Like how could you not be able to make a stone that's too heavy for you? But then how could you not lift the stone if you got, my brain hurts.
Now sure, this isn't so much of a game-ending flaw, but it certainly demonstrates that theists tend not to understand the nature of these concepts. A contradiction that is a game-ending flaw, however, is the combination of omniscience and human free will, because if a being has unlimited knowledge, omniscience, then it knows all things, including the future. But if the future is known, then free will, the ability to consciously do otherwise, isn't possible. And finally, let's look at two omni-attributes that are incompatible with reality, that being omnipotence and omnibenevolence. If a being existed with these attributes, then it would necessarily create the best possible universe, because it has unlimited power, omnipotence, and it's infinitely good, omnibenevolence. But one can easily think of a universe that's better than this one. For example, one in which innocent babies aren't born with cancer.
I don't really know what he's saying. Don't know how to process no more. But I picked up on the babies, and I really need baby Jesus. Jesus, baby Jesus, just please give him strength.
Or to put it another way, and to expand upon a quote from the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Now there's no two ways around this. If a being exists that is willing to prevent evil, that is omnibenevolent, but is not able, that is, does not have the power to do so, then this being is not omnipotent. Epicurus continues, is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Again, this sentence is logically valid. If a being exists that is able to prevent innocent babies from being born with leukemia, but is not willing, then this being is a malevolent colossus prick. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? And again, this sentence is logically valid, and I personally think that it's the nail in the coffin for most theists. If a being exists that is able and willing to prevent evil, then it logically follows that evil cannot exist. But evil does exist, and therefore this being does not exist.
Be gone from me, devil. Be gone. Your honey words. Well, he just said, it just makes too much sense. It's how I know it's the devil. Let's pray together, my friends, because we have been in the presence of pure evil. Sweet baby Jesus, Sweet, sweet, sweet Jesus. This war's real. I'll just witness the devil, a demon, walking around in the flesh of man. But I'm gonna be your warrior. Earl's here to fight these demons. And I'm gonna take over Nakasuchi as much as I can, Lord. And I'm gonna fight against this evil that has my host. And I'm gonna win him over for you, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. Oh, I feel better. I feel better. I had to get that hippie rationality out of my brain. And he's starting to make me think weird thoughts. Starting to make me question God. But God's grace has filled me. And I'm whole. And I'm going to combat all these atheists because they're nothing but demons. And this war is real. So until next time, I'm the Raging Christian, your friend Earl. If you like my videos, hit this thumbs up, subscribe, shout out in the comment section below. Maybe one of these days I'll be awake and can answer. I'll see you soon.